I mean, on the newsletter, I've gotten death threats many times. I've been traveling the world for 25 years nonstop. I've been to close to 120 countries. I'm Canadian with Danish heritage. My wife is from mainland China. I met her in Germany. We got married in Africa. Paraguay is one of my favorite countries in the world. I've put in millions of dollars of investment into Paraguay. I've sat down on a couple of occasions with the president of Paraguay. I run a company called Expat Money. We're a consulting firm, 7-8-figure business. Helping people move offshore. We deal with their taxes, their immigration. Like I remember when I moved to the UAE and I told people I was living in Abu Dhabi, and I swear to God, everybody heard like Abu Baghdad or something like that. Like I think they like really had no idea, what was going on in the Middle East.
Canada is probably the wokest country. It's literally the wokest country on earth.
I think Western democracies are a sinking ship. I don't believe in extortion. I think extortion is a really, really bad thing, otherwise known as taxation.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls around the world, I'd like to welcome you back to the Real Talk with Zuby podcast. On today's episode, we have got on the founder and CEO of Expat Money, and this is Mikkel Thorup. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Excited to be here. I've been following you on Twitter for a very long time, so it's really cool to meet you in almost person, and very excited about this, and hopefully be able to share a little bit of knowledge and answer some good questions and inspire your audience. Should be awesome.
Awesome. Mikkel, I know from your story that we have a lot of stuff in common, and you are someone who has traveled even more than I have. Not a lot of people can say that, but you are truly the international man of mystery. So first things first, where are you from and how did you get into your current work?
Ooh, okay. So I'm born in Southwestern Ontario, Canada. I mean, I got into this at a very young age. I mean, to explain my backstory, you kind of have to understand all the way back from when I was a child, but I've talked about it on many programs, so I'll do a really, really abbreviated version. Basically, when I was in grade 3, I got pulled out of my neighborhood. I got pulled out of my class at my neighborhood school, and the teacher and the principal and the vice principal were there, and they sat me down and they said, Mikkel, something doesn't work quite right in your brain. And what we want to do is send you to special school, special school for special boys. And that's what they did, Zuby. For 3 years, I went to a quote unquote special school and took a little white bus across town. And overall, it was a pretty horrendous experience. It was actually not a special school. It was a special class in a regular school. So I got in tons of fights and I got picked on. And this is no woe is me type of story. I mean, I got hit. I hit back twice as hard if I could. I mean, I absolutely gave it everything I got. But eventually, after 3 years, I got to go back to my neighborhood school, and I thought this is going to be amazing, and everyone's going to be so excited to see me, and I'm going to have all my friends and everything. And everybody instead started kind of gossiping and whispering, and oh, I remember Mikkel, he went to some retard school. Thanks, guys. Very, sensitive. You know how children are. But overall, public education left a very bad taste in my mouth. And at 12 years old, I stopped going to school. And at 15, I officially dropped out. And when I dropped out, I started traveling internationally. And I got to go to all these interesting places and meet all these amazing people. And I started to understand that there's actually more than one way to learn or more than one way to do things. And this normal life that I grew up with in Canada is actually not that normal. It's not the standard anywhere in the world. And I met all these people who really inspired me. And I figured out as a teenager that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to travel and explore and do all these things. And I think that was kind of my way through public education to finding libertarianism and freedom and these types of movements. And a side note, by the way, the learning disability is dyslexia, which we now know at this time it's not that big of a deal, but 1980s, horrible thing, I guess. Mm-hmm. But fast forward to today, I've been traveling the world for 25 years nonstop. I've been to close to 120 countries. I've lived in 9. As I said, I'm Canadian with Danish heritage. My wife is from mainland China. I met her in Germany. We got married in Africa. Our first child was born in the UAE, where you are. Second child in Brazil, third child in Chile, fourth child in Mexico.
Oh, wow.
This is actually, we just had our fourth 5 weeks ago. So this is actually the first time I'm actually telling it. Thank you. We're really excited. But yeah, Super passionate about these things. Zuby, traveling, exploring the world, investing internationally. I run a company called Expat Money. We're a consulting firm, 7, 8 figure business, helping people move offshore. We deal with their taxes, their immigration, all these things. But it all kind of started with my disdain for the state at 12 years old, 10, 11, 12 years old, going through public education. And now at 42, I've built a successful business helping people escape this.
Amazing. Well, that is a very early red pilling. I have to ask, I'm curious. I mean, how old were you when you said you went on your first international trip like that?
I was 17. I went to first Ireland, England, and Wales. And then I was back in Canada for a little bit. And then at about 18, 19, I went through Western Europe, ran out of money, took a ferry over to Tangiers in Morocco, and then spent 2 months in Morocco. Tried to go into Algeria on a camel, took 3 days on a camel to try to enter into Algeria across the Sahara. And then after that was 18 months in the ski resorts in Western Canada, 18 months hitchhiking and backpacking through Central and South America, then a year in New Zealand, 3 in Australia, a year in Singapore, a year in the Arctic, 8 in Abu Dhabi, and now 6 in Panama, which is where I am now, and then a couple of other random places.
What did your parents think?
Well, my mother has always been very supportive. My mother lives with us. She's lived with us for 10 years
Oh,
now,
great.
helping take care of the kids. So we're very, very close. Um, I think my father was just scared for me at first. I mean, he traveled a lot when he was 25 or something. And I remember growing up and him telling me that travel was the best thing he ever did with his life. I was like, if it's the best thing you ever did with your life, like, why didn't you do it more? Like, why weren't you out there more? You did all this cool stuff when you were 25, but then you went back to southwestern Ontario and then stopped. And I just like never stopped.
That's interesting. I mean, something I find really fascinating and inspiring about everything you said and who you are is the fact that you're doing all this with a family. I know a lot of expats. I know a lot of digital nomads and travelers and wanderers, and I'm one myself. And the vast majority, it's normal. It's normally single dudes. It's not normally guys who have families, multiple children, and so on. And there's certainly a very, very strong idea when these topics are brought up. There's this idea that once you are married and or have children, that all of it must stop, right? Like all of this must cease, and you need to pick your one spot and just stay there and grow roots, and that is just the thing. And this whole digital nomad, traveling, multiple residencies, passports, all of this stuff is just like I don't know, it's sort of like a dream for single young bachelors who are sort of disconnected from reality. And you are living proof that this is possible. So I am curious as to how you've managed it all with your wife and children. What does that look like in terms of where you spend your time, in terms of travel, in terms of education, all of these things that people think makes it impossible? How have you managed that over the years?
Great question, and probably my most favorite topic right now. My kids are so incredibly important to me. I mean, all kids are important to their parents. I mean, that's a normal thing. But what you're saying is absolutely right because I was getting told 25 years ago, okay, get this out of your system. It's fine. When you want to have a family, you have to settle down. And I was like, yeah, we'll see about that. But I mean, I guess the first thing was my wife was already very much into travel when I met her. So we were both living in the UAE. We met on a flight to Germany, and we were both had a passion for seeing the world. So within the first, I don't know, couple of days or a couple of weeks, we had a conversation about what we wanted out of life, and she wanted to be a stay-at-home mother, and she wanted to be beautiful, and we wanted to travel. And I was like, great, sign me up. Let's have lots of kids. You be beautiful, you stay at home, take care of the kids, I'll build a business. And that's what we've done. So I mean, it's not easy. It's not like, oh, this was just so easy and it just I mean, nothing. I mean, I guess it really just came down to being purposeful and even doing the travel when it's hard or expensive. We see our children truly as an investment and investing in the whole family unit, our entire family dynasty. So I think that what happens, especially with a lot of the progressive ideas, is they see children as a burden or as a guilty pleasure because children cost a lot of money and people pollute and global warming and all of this stuff that I don't subscribe to whatsoever. We really are very traditional. So I believe in having a large family because I think it will grow the family's wealth and not just capital as in financial capital, but human capital, intellectual capital, spiritual capital, all of these types of things. So when I take my daughter to another country, my firstborn's little girl, she's almost 9 years old. She's been to 32 countries now. Now, when she has memories, she goes into her wardrobe and she gets a shirt or something like that, and she remembers the person that she bought this from when we were traveling in Medellin a couple of years ago, or she has these photos and these experiences when she was dancing in Costa Rica, or like there's all these cool little things that are just normal parts of her knowledge and her memory. When I take her to Europe, we do roughly 2 months in Europe every year because I speak on stage at many different conferences and events. I take my kids around with me. We'll do this huge dinner. There'll be 100 people there, let's say, and she'll be the only kid. I'll be like, okay, here's your mission for dinner. You need to go up and approach three people. And I want you, when you come back, to know their name, where they're from, do they have any hobbies, or do they play any musical instruments? So she'll disappear. I'm like, go talk to strangers. Get out of here. Go have fun. She'll come back in half an hour, and she's like, I met, I don't know, I can't remember what the girl's name was, Veronica, and she was from Russia, and she loves playing the piano, and she met a German guy who likes weightlifting, and she asks all these questions and stuff, and she'll be like 6, 7, 8 years old, and she'll just like tug on someone's sleeve, and they'll turn around and then look down, and there's this little girl, and she just starts a conversation with them. And I'm like, I think this is really cool. And we homeschool our kids, or world school or unschool our children. So this is like part of their education. The travel is, it all fits in exactly what we're trying to do. So um I guess a tip for other families would be, don't expect that it's going to be easy. Don't expect it's going to be cheap or anything like that, but do it anyways because it's good for you, it's good for your children, and it's good for you as a family unit because as you build memories together, you strengthen those bonds. You strengthen them with your spouse, you strengthen them with the children, and nothing replaces that. I don't think um, watching TV or going to the movies or something is going to have that same bond of putting yourself in a difficult situation in a language that you may or may not speak. And it's just, I don't know. It's my style of doing things, but it's fun. We're enjoying it a lot.
Yeah, it's certainly unorthodox, but I think it's absolutely awesome. I mean, I'm very blessed that I grew up being able to travel to a bunch of different countries. I mean, my family background's from Nigeria, but I grew up in Saudi Arabia. I was born in England. By the age of 10, I don't know, I think I've probably been to at least 10 different countries or so. And yeah, it just meant that from very early on, the idea of getting on a plane or traveling to different countries, meeting people from different places, it wasn't this sort of strange, scary foreign concept. And I think that naturally, with most people, what they grow up with is what becomes normal. So if you grow up and it's normal to just be in your hometown and stay there, and your parents don't even have a passport, maybe you don't have a passport, and you're just kind of your entire childhood, you're just in one place and one country, then that's the norm. And for some people, they grow up like that and they have the wanderlust and they're really excited to travel when they get older. But for a lot of people, the concept just seems either pointless or even scary, right? There are a lot of people who are my age, your age, older, younger, and just the thought of traveling to a foreign country. I mean, even in this age of social media and Google Maps and all this stuff where you can kind of see what places look like, it still strikes fear into a huge chunk of the population, which, people are going to do what they're going to do. Me personally, I think that there's something a little bit sad about that. I think it's unnecessarily limiting. I just think the world is such a big and interesting place that to spend your entire lifetime just in one tiny corner of it, I feel like you're kind of missing a lot in the same way I'd feel like you're missing a lot if you ate the same food every single day. I mean, you can survive. There's nothing inherently wrong with it, but it's just like you're not interested in even trying any other type of food or cuisine, and I guess everyone's just wired differently on that front. What has been the response? What's the range of responses you get when you do what you do, whether that's online or offline, and you're kind of just explaining your life to people? Obviously, I find it fascinating and I can relate to it, but I'd imagine that you get a pretty broad range of responses.
I definitely do. I mean, on the newsletter at expatmoney.com, we do what we affectionately call shaking the tree. So I really don't want people on the list who are, hardcore socialists or commies or anything like that. Like, I really have no interest. Well, I mean, it's true. Like, I don't have any interest in helping, commies spread their bad ideas around the world. Like, when Trump got in, people are like, oh, now that, the right is in, are you going to be helping people from the left? And I'm like, God, no. Like, that's the last thing I want to do is, like, let's take those ideas and export them to the rest of the world. It's like, no, that's, you guys don't need any help there. So I leave all of that alone. I mean, yeah, I mean, on the newsletter, I've gotten death threats many times.
Why?
When
What?
you Because we challenge a lot of people's ideas, and people have really deep-seated beliefs about how the world should work. And like, we just ask a lot of questions. We just ask questions. We go down many rabbit holes. We're just exploring a lot of different things. I'm not shy of giving my opinion on things. I'm not telling people that you need to believe the same as I believe. I'm just telling you how I believe, like what I see in the world. And, you know, at traveling for 25 years straight, and I mean straight, um, it's gives you a very different perspective on the world. Like, I remember when I moved to the UAE and I told people I was living in Abu Dhabi, and I swear to God, everybody heard like Abu Baghdad or something like that. Like, I think they like really had no idea, what was going on in the Middle East. And
Dude,
like,
I grew
okay,
up in
yeah,
Saudi
there's
Arabia. Like, I get it.
yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
So I try to educate people. I try to inspire people. I try to use myself and my life and my case study as a way to show people that you can do. It's like, hey, if this high school dropout dyslexic kid can make millions of dollars and travel the world with his family, like, what's your excuse? Why can't you guys go out and do these things? Like, I didn't grow up from money, by the way. My father was a mailman. My parents got divorced when I was 12 years old. We didn't have any extra money. I started working when I was 12. I started pulling the weeds out of bean fields all summer long when I left school. And then I was working in grocery stores, and then I just saving money and doing all these things. And the entire time, reading, asking questions, looking around, keeping my eyes open, mentoring underneath other people, and just trying to grow and understand. So the response is not always favorable. It's not like people like everybody likes Mikkel. Lots of people dislike me a lot, and I'm okay
Mhm.
with that. The people that I work with, my clients, they don't like me, they love me because I care about them and I get them and I understand them and I work my ass off and I'm so dedicated to them and I would do anything. I bend over backwards for my clients and for the people that I work with. So I never want to be just like this kind of milk toast, like, ah, Mikkel, he's all right or he's okay. It's like, you either fucking love me or you hate me. Like, I'm not looking for any of that in between. And I'm not saying that because I'm trying to get a rise out of people. It's just the truth. Like, it's like, if you guys are not interested in this, you don't like any of these things, you don't like the way I speak, it's cool. The internet is a very big place. There's lots of people to talk to. There's lots of different communities. Um, I'm very fond of our community. We do live events. We get hundreds of people. We do multiple investors trips. We're making a lot of money together. We've got an online community, podcast, webinars, summit. We get six, seven, 8,000 people at an online summit every year. So it's a good sized community. I got 31, 32 staff that work with me at the company. They all understand the vision and the mission that we're on to try to help people. And I don't know.
What is it that draws the most hate? I'm curious.
I mean, I'm really venomously opposed to this woke ideology and all this progressive ideas. I really dislike all of that stuff. I think it's pretty vile, to be honest, and I don't feel the need to watch my tongue about it. I don't. I just call a spade a spade, and I mean, these are cancerous ideas. And I think that someone needs to stand up and say so. I think that more people should be standing up and saying so. All this virtue signaling on ideas that really are not good for humanity, not good for society. You're not serving anybody. You're not helping anybody. These people have never been anywhere. They've never seen anything. They've never done anything with their life, but they become these social justice warriors online and keyboard warriors. And I'm just like, I just have no time for it. I just find the whole thing vile. So
No, dude, I more than get it. I mean, unfortunately, our home countries are are sort of ground zero for it. I mean, Canada is probably the
it's the
wokest
worst.
country. It's literally the
The
wokest country
worst.
on earth.
Yeah.
How I know this is a little bit of a tangent, but now that we're on this topic, why do you think that is? I'm not familiar enough with Canada and Canadian culture and history to understand why it should be the case that they seem to be the ones who go the most crazy with every single so-called progressive idea. But why do you think that is? Because the UK is not doing great in this regard. US and Australia are not doing great, but Canada just seemed to take it to an even, I don't know, a crazier level, except Alberta.
I mean, it's a difficult one. I think that Canada and Australia are both testing grounds for a lot of these ideas. I think that they're like their own little microcosms that ideas get tested out in, and they see how people behave and what's going on. These are Anglo-Saxon countries. Population-wise, they're drastically lower than the United States. I think that it's just been, push, 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 little bit of progressive ideas one after the other. I think that they have been taken over by globalists and technocrats or whatever you want to call them. And they roll out the ideas and they just censor information. There's so many pieces in Canada where there is no freedom of speech. That's long gone. And I mean, that's not just hyperbole. You can see the laws. You can read about bringing in foreign news into the country or podcasts or any type of independent journalism or media or anything like that. They're censoring all of these things. Trudeau was basically in power for 10, 11 years, and he was just a monster. I mean, this is um, you know, young global leaders, and he was basically groomed into a position like this. His father, Pierre Trudeau, had very progressive ideas, and I mean, I think it's just a family of upper elite people who went to the right school or the right school and the right jobs and the right degrees and the right everything, and they've been groomed into these positions for generations to push certain agendas, and we're seeing it all play out in the last 5 years. Everything's coming to a culmination. And the US had stronger laws and has been able to push back. Although, if Kamala had got in, I think that the US would be in just an absolutely terrible position. And I think the entire world would be complaining right now about how the US had gone completely crazy and lost their marbles. But I mean, now Mark Carney in from Canada. I mean, he was I mean, you're from the UK. I mean, you should understand. I mean, he's from Central Bank in the UK, and I mean, he's been groomed for all of this. He had no political career. He's been transplanted into this position, and Canadians voted for it because it's just a lifetime of brainwashing. I saw it went at 12 years old when I left school. Okay, I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was wrong. I absolutely knew that the system was wrong, and I knew I had to get out of that system. Did I know what the word libertarianism was or, all of these ideas? No, but I knew it was wrong. And I think a lot of people know it's wrong, but they're closing their eyes. They don't want to see anymore because if they see, then they have to admit so many things that they've done in their life is wrong. And that is the challenging of the beliefs that I was hinting at earlier. And I just don't think people are ready for that.
It's always going to be a minority of people who think, I don't know, think the way you do, think the way I do. And it can be frustrating because I think one of the most normal human things is to like want other people to see things your way and to kind of like wake people up out of the slumber, get them out of the matrix, try to explain the way they're being sort of exploited and run roughshod over in all sorts of various ways. But you can only do it to some degree. As that famous saying goes, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And you would think that in the age of social media and internet and podcasts and all of that, there'd be this sort of mass global awakening, especially after everything that happened from 2020 to 2022. You'd think like, okay, this is it. Surely people are going to wake up now. And, it just doesn't happen. A small percentage do. But I guess this is just the way that human beings always have been. I think the combination of traits that it requires to not just see through the nonsense, but to have the courage and the assertiveness to stick your head above the parapet when other people aren't and to voice your opinion. And even beyond that, to take some kind of action towards it, right? It's one thing to sit there in Canada or sit there in the UK and complain about taxes, complain about immigration policies, complain about wokeness, complain about you don't like the election, you don't like the prime minister, you don't like this, you don't like that. You can do that all day, and people call that "quote unquote" fighting. When you get the stay and fight, they really mean stay and complain, right? It's like, okay, well,
Yeah.
we live in a big world. We live in a big world, and there's
You're
nothing.
not a
There's
vegetable.
absolutely
You're not rooted to
no.
the ground.
Right. There's nothing wrong with. I think patriotism is generally a good thing, and I understand having pride in where you're from and having roots somewhere and your family and all of that. Like I fully understand it, but there's a point where it's like, okay, if you really feel that strongly, some way, somehow, you've got to do something about it. Like I can only tolerate complaining for so long, and then it's like, okay, well, what are you going to do for you, for your family, if this situation is that bad for you? Especially some people, to me, I just became a father a few weeks ago, right? And
Congratulations. That's amazing.
thank you very much. Thank you. Your fourth child and my first must have been born, probably around a week of each other. And
That's amazing.
I've had people like, because I've been talking like this for years, and so many people are like, oh, well, you say this because you don't have kids yet, or you're not this, and I'm like, and I said even before I was like, I'm guarantee I will feel more strongly about all of these things once I have kids,
100%.
because like that's an even greater motivator to think long term and to be thinking generationally and to thinking how does this culture, how do these policies, how does this climate, how is all of this, not just how is it going to impact me, how is it going to impact my children and my children's children. And it very much makes sense to me to put yourself physically and metaphorically in the best position that you can for your family. And I don't think that I think people are very misguided when they attack or criticize people for doing that, right? They kind of want you to just kind of stay on the sinking ship. And, I understand that misery loves company, but it's like, well, why would you criticize someone for doing what's best for them and their family? For some people, that means like staying where you are, staying in your hometown or moving here or moving there. I'm not telling everyone, you all need to become digital nomads like Mikkel and travel to 100+ countries, right? That's not feasible for most people. But at least sit down and work out, okay, what's our best option here? Given all of these things, maybe it's moving to a small town in Montana or in Utah. I don't know. Maybe it's, moving to Mexico. Maybe it's going to Dubai. Maybe it's going to Panama. Like, I don't know what it is for everyone. But yeah, figure it out. I'm a big fan of that.
Well, I mean, if we look at the parental aspect, okay, so we're both fathers. We need to set a good example for our children, right? So what you were talking about complaining, do you think it's a good example for the children that the father comes home every day and complains about the situation, complains about the government, complains about everything in the world, but doesn't do anything about it? Like, at least my kids, they can look at it and go, okay, well, first of all, I don't need to complain because I'm super happy with my life and what's going on. And I live my values. Okay. I'm not telling, I will never ever tell anybody else what their values should be. I'm telling you what mine are. Mine are like, I don't believe in extortion. I think extortion is a really, really bad thing, otherwise known as taxation. So for me, like, the correct amount of tax to pay is 0.00%. That is the correct. That's the fair share, Zuby. The fair share is 0.00%.
I'm with
Anything
you.
else, anything on top of that is theft. Is like is it's an extortion. Okay, it's a racket. So if you are sitting in Toronto, like where I grew up, and you're paying 55%, or call it 50% in income tax, plus carbon tax, plus tax on gasoline, plus homeowners tax and sales tax, GST, PST, VAT in other countries, all these things, and you're paying 50, 60, 70, 80% in taxation. But you're saying that, hey, one of our family's values is freedom. You're a hypocrite, right?
Yeah.
Like you're a hypocrite. It's okay. Like I'm not judging you, but you just need to understand that you're saying one thing and you're doing something else. That's a hypocrite. So I understand, yes, things are hard, and yes, we need to make, not everybody can do what Mikkel does or anything like that, but you can make some changes. You can do something. You can make little steps towards freedom. The ones that drive me nuts, Subi, are the ones who talk all day long but do nothing. You at least got to be moving towards freedom. And this is the problem. This is the problem that we were discussing before. Why is Australia or Canada or these countries, why is the UK going this way? Because a lot of people talk and they don't do shit. And it's like, if you actually did something, then we could make a change. So I'm doing things. I'm trying to inspire people. I'm trying to help people. I'm trying to coach people. This is my small little role and responsibility. It's my mission in life, is to try to help good, honest, ethical families out of this abusive relationship they have with their government, break this Stockholm syndrome they have with their governments, and everybody has their own own piece that they can play in moving towards freedom. But sitting around complaining and not doing anything is not going to help you. It's not going to set a good example for your children. It's not going to free your grandchildren or future generations or anything like this. So it's like, do something, right?
You're obviously super passionate about what you do and you speak with such conviction. I'm curious to know what's at the root of your belief system? What's at the core of like how and why you see the world the way that you do? Because it is atypical.
So this is an interesting question. So the last couple of years, we've really transitioned our wealth from just a guy investing internationally to more of a family office setup. And during that process, I've been writing our family governance documents. And it's a really cool exercise to try to write down your values. And I don't mean just on the back of a piece of a paper or a notepad. I mean, you can, but I mean, I did 350 some odd page documents explaining our family's values. We did our investment proposal, like how I invest internationally, what is our family constitution, and then what is our operational guide, like how do things work in our family, what are the rules in our family office. I mean, I have full-time lawyer who works for me. I've got a couple of admin staff, plus lots of kids. My parents, my wife's parents. Um, so trying to kind of put everything together. And when I was doing the exercise, I did start with just jotting down some simple little one-liners. Well, we believe in this. We're the type of family who do that. But then you start fleshing out the idea a little bit, and then you start researching, where did the idea come from, or what religion or what background or what culture, where did this come from? I think I mentioned before, my wife's from China, so we have a lot of values from Confucianism, which is very interesting when you start reading and understanding. Side note, people like hate China at the moment because of the CPP. I don't like the CPP, but we're talking about a multi-thousand year old society that has existed basically unbroken. and they have certain ways of doing things, which is actually really, really interesting when you study it. We take things from Christianity, Christian values. I take from, laissez-faire, free market enterprise, libertarianism, classical liberalism. Okay, this is part of our value system. I live in a Latin country. I live in Panama City, Panama. I speak Spanish. It's a Latino culture, so this is very family first type of thing. So I borrow a lot of these ideas, and I think, Zuby, I am on the seventh iteration of these family governance documents. And I have learned so much about myself while putting this together. Just thinking about things, meditating on things, writing down ideas, revising them over and over and over again. I got invited earlier this year back to the U.S. to speak at a wealth conference and talked about family governance documents. It was so interesting. The presenter told me, "Okay, you have an hour to an hour and a half to speak, but then you can have the room and you can keep going because there's gonna be other speeches and people can just go to the next one if they're not interested." About 2 hours into the presentation, they had to pull me off the stage because they needed the room. Then afterwards, so I finished at 11 in the morning. We had lunch, and then I sat there until dinner time, till 5:30, with a group of about 30 people surrounding me in a big circle, asking questions just about the family governance documents, just about family values and how to put these things. So we probably did 7 hours of talking nonstop. And at the end of it, I was like, God, my throat really hurts. Like, what's going on? I looked at the clock and it was like 5:35 or something like that. And I've been basically not stopping for 7 hours straight. But I mean, to go back to your original question, where did this come from? I mean, I think I just piecemealed it, one by one by one by one, over a 25-year career of traveling around the world, traveling all over Asia, Africa, the Middle East, Europe, almost every country in Latin America, um, studying history, studying the culture, studying the people, and just cherry picking the best of the best of the best, and just trying to internalize it, really understand it, meditate on it a lot, and just think deeply. It's not what everybody does. Well, I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's just the way that I've done things. I'm certainly not saying this is the way that everybody needs to do this or everybody needs to go out and do this. But I do think it is a valuable exercise, though, to try to put down your family values on a piece of paper and then, you know, look in the mirror and see, what's written on that piece of paper. Is that what you're living every single day?
How did you get everyone in the wider family on board with it? Because you mentioned not just your wife and kids, of course, but like your parents, your wife's parents, especially with the different cultures. I don't know much about your wife's family and background and so on, but I'm curious as to how you kind of brought the idea to the table and got everyone on board with the idea.
So, my wife and I, as I said before, we had agreements right at the very beginning what we wanted out of life. We wanted a large family. I wanted to homeschool my kids. She wanted to be a stay at home mom. We wanted to travel the world. I wanted to build a business. So, we kind of started with those things. And we've just gone through this process together. We've built it together. These are not like these have become my values, but I didn't come up with all of the values. We talked about them. We worked through it. Now, my mother has always been very supportive, and she's been very awake for a very long time about what's going on. She came to it a little bit after I did. I've certainly helped her along, but she's been very willing to understand different ideas. Um, I think for my wife's parents, they are most concerned that not concerned, most um, yeah, I guess concerned that they want to ensure that I treat their daughter with respect, which I always do, that I can care for her and provide for her, which I do, that I'm a present father for my children, and I am. I'm not out in an office all day. I have a home office, so I have breakfast, lunch, and dinner with my kids every single day. Um, they've been here for 4 months straight. I have permanent residency for them in Panama, so they spend about 4 months a year with us. I bought them a house across the street from my place. I bought my mom a house across the street from my place as well. So we're moving in a couple of weeks. We'll all be in the same neighborhood. Right now, we're in a huge 5,000, almost 5,000 square foot house right now, a two-story penthouse. But soon we'll each have our own, but it's in its own little compound, let's say. So I keep family close. And I think it's just a lot of talking, just a lot of discussing ideas and going back and forth with things. In 10 years of marriage, my wife and I have never had a fight. We've never screamed at each other. We've never sworn at each other. We've never disrespected each other. We don't necessarily always agree on everything, but every single time, if we have something that we see differently on, we'll sit down and we'll try to ask questions. And why do you think like that? And why, how did you come to these conclusions? And, how does, how did your mind, decide on this? And what was the background and the history? And what were the bad experiences that made you think this before? What were the good experiences that made you think this from before? And sometimes it's a 20-minute conversation and sometimes it's a 4-hour conversation. But you know, we just stay with it and we just discuss things and I mean, respect is just so, so, so important. And if anybody's out there and has an Asian wife or an Asian partner, they will understand the concept of giving face and of respect. And yeah, it's an important cultural distinction uh, that you really have to know what you're getting into if you're going to be with someone from an Asian culture. This is paramount in everything that they do, saving face and giving face.
There's so many interesting directions we can go in. How did you decide on Panama?
Good question. Okay, I actually hitchhiked and backpacked through Central and South America back in 2003, 2004. I took 18 months and I came through Latin America. This was pre Uber, pre smartphone, pre Google Maps, pre Airbnb and everything like that. So I just hitchhiked through all Central America and I really liked Panama. I thought it was a really interesting place. I tried to actually cross the Darien Gap from Panama into Colombia. It was cool. I took a small prop plane. It was basically delivering mail and I think missionaries out to the Darien. So I think we did 5 or 6 little hops on this small plane. Then I got on a 4x4. I found someone who had a 4x4. We drove into the jungle for 4 or 5 hours and then stayed out there and then got on a motorized canoe and then spent 3 days going up the river to try to get into Colombia on a motorized canoe. It was pretty intense. Eventually, I had to turn around and head back after several days. The Darien beat me, unfortunately, but yeah, I just had a really cool memory of Panama. And then we were living in the UAE, and I did not like what was happening with the US and Iran at that time, which, funny enough, as we're recording this, things are certainly heating up a lot in Iran, which I will leave alone in this conversation. But I mean, the U.S. were moving in the Armada to the Persian Gulf or to the Arabian Gulf, whatever you want to, depending which map you're looking at. And I looked around, and we were in Abu Dhabi, not too far from the nuclear power plants that were being built. And they have Italian Air Force bases and U.S. military in the UAE. And I was going, wow, if things heat up with Iran, this is not going to be a good place to have kids. And the UAE, summertime is maybe 55 degrees Celsius. And without air conditioned, you're going to fry, like literally. And most of the water is desalinated. So you need to burn the energy to desalinate the water. You don't grow anything there, or maybe just, you just have some Alain chickens or something like that and eggs and, a little bit of microgreens. But otherwise, the UAE doesn't produce too much food, certainly not enough to feed itself. So I started looking around and I wanted to be in a tax-free country. I liked the UAE for being very tax-free. What I wanted to be in a food, water, and energy independent country. Now, Panama doesn't have hydrocarbons like the UAE does, but they have hydroelectric. So we produce all our own electricity here. I think we've got 21 or 22 hydroelectric dams. So that's very good. We don't have oil and gas, which builds up wealth for the country. We've got the Panama Canal. So there's actually a lot of parallels that I could see. Um, and then I think, well, two other pieces that I wouldn't normally mention, but I'll mention with you because you're there and maybe you'll find it interesting. One was the language, I didn't think that. Okay, so my kids speak native level English, Mandarin, English and Mandarin, and then for a third language, I didn't think that Arabic for a young lady was going to be as useful as some other languages. Not that it wouldn't be useful, but maybe not as useful. So we ended up wanting her to learn Spanish. So another check in the box for Panama. Funny side story: 2 years ago, my daughter came to me and said, "Daddy, where was I born?" And I said, "You were born in Abu Dhabi." She said, "Oh, what language do they speak there?" I said, "Arabic." She goes, "Great, I want to learn Arabic." I'm like, "Okay, let's learn Arabic." So she has an Arabic teacher, and she's been learning
Oh, that's cool.
Arabic. Yeah, so she's actually gone back and forth between Russian and Arabic, but now she's into Portuguese, so she's learning Portuguese like crazy. Um, yeah. And then the other thing, and then you'll definitely understand this. All of my clients are in North America. Like, call it 80% of my clients are in North America. We go north,
Time
south,
zone.
time zone. It's
Yeah.
a big one. It's such a
Yeah.
big one. It was fine to start work at 5 p.m. and work till 3 a.m. when it was just my wife and I, or just me as a single guy. But with a little girl at home, I mean, we left the UAE when she was 2, and she wants to get up and play, and she's up at 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning, and it's like, no, shh, you got to be quiet. Daddy's sleeping, and I'm sleeping until 1 p.m. That's not fair for a kid. So I was like, all right, I needed to be back on Central Time or Eastern Standard Time or something like that, for family. So, we loved the UAE. It was home. Some of my best memories of my entire life are in the UAE. I spent a quarter of my entire life, a third of my adult life in the UAE, and I mean, I don't have a bad word to say about the place. I think it's just fantastic on every level. I mean, it has its problems like anywhere, but I think
Of
overall,
course.
I
Yeah.
think it's one of the greatest countries. And it's just there's so many cool people there. But at the end, these few things were enough that I decided this was not going to serve my family. I didn't feel good about the situation in Iran. I didn't feel good about not having enough water or food. I wasn't sure about the language, and I needed to be on Eastern Time or Central Time, so that I could serve my family and be awake at the same time they're awake, and you know be
Yeah.
present for those moments of my daughter's
It's
life.
like what we were saying earlier. I mean, doing the individual and familial math and working out, okay, like where's best for us overall. I think something that a lot of people kind of struggle with in general, not just on this topic, but just as a world concept, is the concept of trade-offs. I think that you have so many people who kind of just want. You get it all the time, right? Mikkel, where's the best place? Where's the best city? What's the best place? You're like, for who? For what? Who are you? What are you doing? What's your situation? Like, there's so many details that go into that, and people have such different preferences. I mean, we talked about the wokeness in Canada, but I mean, just the weather. I'm like, okay, like just the weather alone, I would never live in Canada because even if the policies made sense, I'm just like, I hate winter. Like, I absolutely hate it. I hate the winter. I don't even like it in the UK. So the idea of like moving to somewhere where it gets like minus 40 Celsius, I'm just like, no. And then I know there are people who, just the idea of like living in Dubai or Abu Dhabi, like just the weather alone, they're like, no, 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 I can't deal with that level of heat. And I'm like, fair enough. Everyone is just different, and people need to understand that there's no one place or person or situation or policy or anything that's going to give you like every single benefit that you want with no downsides. You just have to kind of weigh it up for yourself individually and make a decision.
This is so, so interesting and so insightful, because this really ties back to what we were talking about earlier in the conversation on people sitting on their hands and doing nothing. I see this so many times. People are looking for perfection. They're looking for Shangri-La or heaven, and unless they can get perfection, they're going to do nothing. And I'm like, do you know how ridiculous that sounds? Like, at least take one step towards freedom, one step, and then another step and another step. You don't need to know exactly where you're going. You don't have to have perfection on the other side. Just move in the general direction of freedom, of having a better life, of personal responsibility. Just move in that direction. We'll figure out the rest of it as we go. But people disqualify an entire country because of one small thing that they don't like. And it's like, Okay. I mean, like, I actually happen to like hot weather, but I mean, Panama's like super humid. And I mean, it's even for me sometimes, I'm like, wow, this is really, really humid. But I'll take that. Maybe it's I wish it was 5 degrees cooler. But am I going to throw the baby out with the bathwater because it's just a little bit too hot? No, that's ridiculous. It's tax free, it's food, water, and energy independent. It's safe. They have good medical. They have got tons of sports and activities, the Pacific and the Atlantic. I mean, there's mountains, there's beaches, there's like, it's well connected. You got the best airport. It's on Central Time. Like, there's so many things cool that are here. And someone would be like, no, too hot. I can't do it. Like, okay, fine. So you're going to shovel snow for 7 months a year and, take a chance and slip on it and break your hip because, it's 32 instead of 27. It's like, come on, guys. You're
And
insane.
lose 80% of your familial
Yeah.
wealth over the course of your lifetime to the
Yep.
state.
I mean, at the end of the day, I really think that it's excuses. People
Yeah.
are looking for reasons not to take action because not doing something is much easier than going into the unknown. Going into, hey, I don't know how this is going to turn out. I don't know what it's going to be like to sit down at a restaurant and have to order something in Spanish. I don't know what it's going to be like to rent an apartment, and I don't know what the LMS system is like. Or, like there's so many unknowns. I don't know how to turn on my cell phone in Costa Rica. It's all right, mate. You'll
Yep.
figure it out. Like, it's just piece by piece by piece. Don't worry about having everything. They just want to stay, even if it's an abusive place, even if it's terrible, even if the weather is crap, even if they're going to extort, 80% of what you have. At least it's familiar.
Yeah. I often say that I often say that most people are conservative. And when I say that, I don't mean it in the hard political sense, although I think globally more people are conservative than certainly any type of progressive. But when I say that, I just mean, most people don't like change. Most people are averse to change and they have their comfort zone and they don't like to go outside it, especially once they're adults. They don't really want to learn new things. They don't want to change their mind on anything. Sometimes they don't even want to try new foods or meet new people or anything like that. And again, I kind of inherently don't have a problem with this as long as you don't complain about it. Like yourself, I think I get bugged by people who constantly complain, but like you said, they just don't do anything about the situation. It's like this is slightly off topic, but it's like when I hear a lot about I don't know, like when I hear stuff about like the loneliness epidemic, and you'll have people, sadly, normally guys, who, will complain about being lonely and not having friends and not feeling community, but will absolutely refuse to like go outside the house or participate in an activity or join a gym or do a class or like do anything that would actually like put you in front of new people. So they'll be complaining all day, I'm feeling lonely, da da da, spending 7 hours a day online. And it's like, okay, have you tried like going outside and talking to people? Like it would be like me being hungry and I'm just sitting here like complaining about I'm hungry. And you're just like, why don't you eat? Like, have you got food in your fridge? Why don't you go outside, go to a supermarket, go to a restaurant? Like, if you're hungry, there's a solution for this. But instead, I'm just like, oh no, I don't like anything in the supermarket. I don't want to cook. I don't want to order anything. And it's like, okay, well, shut up about being hungry then, And some people will think that's like really unsympathetic of me. And maybe it is, but I often say like I'm very judicious with my sympathy. Like there's people in the world I have all the sympathy for. And then there are other people who just choose to make themselves miserable and create problems and complain about them. They're fully able-bodied. There's nothing wrong with them. Like you're living in a first world country. You've got all these opportunities and still you're just like, I'm just going to sit here and mull around and be angry and be mad at everyone else. And I'm just like, I don't know. I wish I could give those people like a little metaphorical kick. And I know that I do sometimes, via social media and even this podcast and so on. But for anyone, I don't know, anyone who's in that situation, it's just like, I love it when you said just move in the general direction of the thing that you're seeking, whether that is freedom, whether that is better health, whether that is earning more money, whether that's finding a relationship, whatever it is, just like put yourself in a place where something may happen, right? If you just sit in your bedroom all day and you're just scrolling TikTok and Instagram and X, like it's it's not going to happen. Like that's just not how anything gets built.
And when you think about it, these things they build on one another. So it's like, okay, well, I want to not be lonely. Okay, so you go outside and you start one conversation, and then you also get a little bit of sunlight and you also get a little bit of exercise. Well, now you feel a little bit better. So you have a positive reinforcement mechanism. So now you're going to try it again. You're going to do it again. And it's like every time you take one step, you're going to get these additional benefits. They're going to compound, they're going to add on at an exponential rate. And, you know, within 6 months, a year, you can completely transform your life. You can just like anything you want, you're going to be able to do, but you have to start taking action. If you're doom scrolling all day long and you're just looking at negative news, I mean, that's not going to help. Like, I mean, just like put away your phone. I mean, finish our episode here for sure. But I mean, besides that, put your phone away. Like, come on, like get outside, go and do something. Like, so I mean, I'm very much for taking action. I'm not just like, okay, you just need to read and study all day long. It's like, no, you need to be part of the world. You need to interact with people. You need to have conversations, exercise. I'm a big one for healthy living. I'm very much into getting outdoors. You know, Zuby, I recently took up paddle. I don't know if paddle has made it to the UAE or not, but
Oh,
in
but, oh,
Latin
big. Oh,
America, it
dude,
is
huge.
crazy.
It's huge in
It's
Dubai.
huge here. That's amazing. It's now
Yeah.
like I'm out for dinner with a client, and they're like sitting there, we're chatting and stuff like that. And I was out a couple days ago, and he's like, "So I recently took up paddle," and I was like, "Me too. I recently took up paddle too." He's like, "Amazing. Let's connect. We're gonna go play paddle together." And I was on with my Colombian lawyers the other day, and we're talking about paddle, and so I'm gonna go see him this weekend. Hopefully, get in a couple of matches there. And it's like, I mean, I'd never played. I mean, I played tennis when I was a kid or something like that, and badminton, as a teenager. But it'd been 25 years, and now in my 40s, I'm picking up a new sport and talking to people and going outside. And it's like, mate, if I can do it, I mean, literally anybody can do it. I mean, I'm just, I'm on the computer all day, so to go outside and move my body, it feels amazing. It's like anybody can do these things. Just pick up something, some activity, just get going. Like God.
100%. Mikkel, I wanted to ask you because I have an idea in my head from my travels, but a question that comes up a lot, or something that people say a lot when these conversations are going on, is the whole, well, where do you go? Right? Like there's nowhere to go. People like to say this in the UK, Canada, US, like there's nowhere else to go. So can you give a short list in your mind, in your work, where the world is, the trajectory you see it going, let's say over the next 10 years? What are a couple of places? I don't know. It could be 5, it could be 10, however many you want. Can you just give a few places that you think are worth exploring for someone who this is all sounding interesting for?
First, I would encourage people, if there is somewhere in your heart that you've always wanted to visit, but you've not been there, you've not explored it. Maybe it was something you saw on TV or a book you read or a novel or something like that. But there's somewhere in your heart that you're like, wow, I really want to see this place or understand this place. Now, whether you've told anybody about this dream or not, if you shared it with your spouse or with your siblings or a friend or something like that, I don't know, but I would definitely encourage you to go and check it out. And don't worry about, moving to the country or what it would be like to be the rest of your life, but just go for like a month or 2 months or something like that. Get an Airbnb, maybe rent a vehicle, go explore and just kind of see what life is like out there. Um, I think that people just need to get some experience and get a little bit of self confidence underneath them. As for where the world is going, I see a massive decline in Western democracies. I think that they are weaponizing everything on all fronts against us. I think that it is this, uh, my friend Hervoye calls it a digital ghetto. And I think that he's absolutely right in this. With this technocracy and the ideas of surveillance and AI. I mean, I think AI is amazing and there's so many great things that it can be used for, but it's also used in the surveillance state. I think Western democracies are a sinking ship. I don't think that there's a very bright future for us in those countries.
Do you include the USA in that?
The USA is very much a surveillance state. I mean, there's more federal laws there. There's more things to get in trouble for. They have worldwide taxation. The federal government are absolute monsters. Okay, you can move to Texas, you can move to Florida. That's great, but you still have to contend with the federal government. So I think that's very, very problematic. But if you're in California, New York, Illinois, I mean, you're screwed. I mean, those places, there's no freedom left in these places. Like, you need to get out. They're going as bad as Canada is in, um, and I don't see a very bright future for them at all. Maybe I don't think that they will allow Texas or anything to secede, but if they did, that would be a very interesting one. Same with Florida, or if it was, a culmination of a few states that were able to secede. I think that's kind of a pipe dream, though. I think that if that happens, you can always move back, but in that interim period, I think you got to get out now. Um, I quite like Latin America because I'm very traditional. I'm very conservative background. Um, I don't want to be in a progressive country. I don't want progressive ideology or have it around my kids at all. And they have tried to bring it to Latin America on a number of occasions, and they get chased out of town. I mean, they try to bring it into the school systems. The teachers get fired. I mean, like, with just cause. None of this transgender nonsense and sexualization of children and things like that. That just doesn't exist in Latin America. Like, they'll kill you for stuff like that. Like, you don't talk to kids about this, or it's
They're not down
you
with the
don't want to mess around.
Latinx.
Yeah. So,
Such a stupid term.
it's unbelievable, and it's pretty funny actually bringing it up with Latinos, because they're like Latinos are
You
like,
can't even pronounce it in the language.
doesn't make sense. That doesn't even like make sense at all. I'm like, I know. I like Panama. I think Panama's a cool place for all the reasons I've already highlighted. Costa Rica's amazing. Costa Rica does have a lot of progressives there because they kind of have this background of, you know, green tourism and yoga tourism and stuff. But there are some really cool places in Costa Rica and some amazing people down there. You just have to be a little bit more mindful. Paraguay is one of my favorite countries in the world. I've put in millions of dollars of investment into Paraguay. I've sat down on a couple of occasions with the president of Paraguay and given advice and advised them on immigration and what we should do. I know a lot of the ministers there. They are open for business. That country wants foreign direct investment, lots of FDI. We did a trip in February. Actually, on our YouTube channel, you can see the video of the February trip. We're going again in September to Paraguay. We're going to Colombia in December this year, to Medellin. I like northeastern Brazil for investment. I don't like the Lula administration at all in Brazil, but there's some cool investment opportunities in Brazil. Uruguay is another good country to look into. They last year had a left-leaning administration, unfortunately, come in. However, their left would be anyone else's center. I mean, they're not hardcore leftists or socialists or anything like that. But it's a very cool country. Not great investment opportunities because it's quite expensive there. They also have a very high value-added tax. By the way, I never understood what is the value that they're adding with these taxes. Like, it's like a value-added tax, but it's like you're just getting in the way. Like, get the fuck out of here. I'm not sure what the value that they
I can
put
actually
on that. So,
I can actually explain that if you genuinely don't know.
please, genuinely, I would love to know, because it doesn't make sense in my brain at all.
Okay, you're almost like reading it the wrong way. It's not like value adding of the tax. It's like every stage where there is value added within the chain of the product or service, you apply the tax. Does that make sense? So if you are...
So every step of the way, they want a bite of your apple.
Exactly. So at every stage,
amazing.
so between, I don't know, the farmer and the wholesaler, and then the wholesaler and the retailer, and then the retailer and the customer, at each stage, it gets hit with the VAT because value is being added each time. And so they tax the value.
It's a racket. I mean, it's like legit the mafia. You know that, right? Like, what you just described.
I know.
Is like, it's protection money. I mean, that's the mafia.
And that's one of the least bad taxes.
Exactly. I know. Exactly. I mean, the really bad one is all the income taxes. I do a presentation. I have a group coaching program called First Class, and I give a presentation on taxation, and we list out every single tax that is out there. And it takes me like 20 minutes to go through just the types of taxes that are out there, like the types of taxes. Okay. But I mean, the really abusive ones are the income tax because they're taxing productivity. They're taxing you contributing to society. And the more you contribute, the better you do, the more value you bring to the world, the more they want to take away from you. So they're disincentivizing you for helping society.
Yeah.
That's plain evil. That's plain evil. At least this sales tax, VAT, PST, GST, these types of consumption taxes are taking away so that they're encouraging you not to spend. They're
Yeah.
really encouraging you to save. And I like saving. I like building up wealth and then using that wealth to invest and to
Then they hit you with
create
capital
more,
gains tax.
which is capital gains tax is an income tax. So that goes back on the other side of the margin, right? That's an income
Yeah.
tax. Dividends distributions, capital gains, income tax, corporate tax, those are all
Yeah.
in the income tax bracket. But it's really
Yeah.
interesting when you start studying all the different taxes and then all the things that are taxes, but they don't call taxes. And you start adding it all up and you're like, wow, this is crazy. Like this is
And then,
absolutely nuts.
I mean, the most sinister one of the most sinister, isn't even considered a tax at all, and that's inflation.
The invisible tax, definitely. Hey, by the
That's
way,
just
Panama,
eating
we
like
have no
what?
central bank. We have no
Oh,
central
interesting.
bank in the country of Panama. Yep. So
So,
we have what's called the Balboa. So the Balboa is a local currency that is pegged 1-to-1 with the United States dollar. There are no notes for the Balboa, but we have coins. Now, for notes, we use US dollars. So what happens is, okay, there is inflation from the United States in the supply of US dollars, but Panama themselves cannot print US dollars. Okay. They basically borrow, they import the US dollars as our local currency. So if the Panamanian government gets in trouble, if they're not fiscally responsible, they have no options. They can't turn on the printing press and just create more money, which means our financial house is in way better shape here than in most countries in the world. And in 2024, if you look at all the countries, I believe Panama had the lowest inflation rate. It was like a fraction of 1%. So it's just it's a much more stable type of country. And then some people say, well, what about the de-dollarization? What happens if something went to the happened to the US dollar and it exploded or imploded or whatever? Well, we still have the laws in place for the Balboa. We still have our own currency in the back pocket. And when you bring in other things like they're now friendly to crypto, you can now pay your there's very little taxes here, but if you needed to pay taxes or property taxes, that can all be done in Bitcoin. We have Bitcoin friendly banks here now. I mean, people are always talking about it only about El Salvador. Panama is actually coming up huge. So when you add all these things in together, plus it's a tax-free country, it's like, wow, this is like the most libertarian country on earth.
how interesting. Just to circle back to what we were saying, so we've talked about a few spots in Latin America. What about a couple that you think are worth people investigating outside Latin America?
Okay, yes, I did focus mostly on Latin America. Um, we talked a little bit about the UAE. I really do still like the UAE, but we have to understand what you're getting there. It is not it's not a democracy, and I don't necessarily like democracies whatsoever. But if you think that you're going to be able to go out there and run your mouth or criticize the royal family, like that is not the place for you on any level. I lived there for 8 years. I had no problem with this because the government of the UAE is really great, actually, what they're doing. So you kind of understand where the boundaries are and what you can say and what you can do. And if you stay within those, you're fine. By the way, if you don't stay within them, what happens? They don't chop your hands off or any bullshit that you read online. They deport you. They give you back your passport and they say you got 24, 48 hours to leave the country. I had this, by the way. I saw someone, there was a guy that I knew in the UAE. He decided to throw a party in the middle of Ramadan and invite a bunch of people over and got completely drunk. and they started whipping beer bottles off the balcony and smashing on the ground. And someone called the police, and the police came and arrested them, and they were in jail for, I don't know, a day or two. They released them. They gave them back the passport, and they said, your visa's been canceled. You have, 24, 48 hours to exit the country.
Every country should do that, though. I support every country doing that.
It's like, you knew what the rules are. This is Ramadan. Like, this is the holy month of Ramadan. And you're getting wasted and chucking beer bottles out your window. Like, you're an idiot. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not surprised by this at all. So, I mean, just know what you're getting into in a country like that. And if you have a problem, there's other countries that you can go to. I like the idea of, it's like there's different places for different types of people. And, I think that there should be, the most communist, socialist, wokest, transgender country out there in the world. And it's like, great, you guys like this type of stuff. This is what you want out of society. Amazing. Move to California. Like, that's it. Like, you guys can have it, like have the whole state or have a whole country. But like, don't try to enforce the ideas on anybody else. And I want to live in a country with zero tax and, organic food, and don't put Monsanto on the crops. And it's like, I need a place that I can go and do that. So this is why I like a lot of these free city movements and the work that Tipolis is doing and all of these kinds of things. And it's like, I think we should have, not 193 countries, but like, 1,000 countries, 10,000 countries, and each one can try out little different forms of governance and styles and political ideologies. And just as long as you're not infringing on anyone else's rights, go for gold.
That concept itself is one of my favorite things about the USA. I think that concept of federalism and having 50 different states with their own jurisdiction and, laws and governance, I think that's super dope. Being from the UK is all like very top down. Like, if the UK goes to crap, like, the whole thing kind of goes to crap. There's no Texas, there's no Florida, there's no Nevada, there's no Utah, right? It's just like, it doesn't really matter even if you're in England or Scotland or Wales, like, you're going to just get hit by whatever crap is coming down the pipeline. So I think that's one huge blessing that Americans have, which they should probably utilize more. I think it's cool that if you are in California and stuff is really sucking, it's like, man, you've got 49 other options within the same nation on the same passport. Like, you can just up and move. You can literally get a U-Haul or put your stuff in your car and just drive for, I don't know, a couple dozen hours and, relocate your family. And I think that's cool. I think it's really cool they have that option.
100%. Just this federal government's gotten out of control there. This is the problem. If more power returned to the state, I think they would be in way better shape, and I think it would be a lot better. But that federal government is insane.
100%. Mikkel, man, we could we'll definitely have to have more conversations in the future. I know you're a man that there's so much stuff that we could talk about that we didn't even get into, but in the interest of time, where can people find and follow you online?
Yes. I mean, the main one would be our website, expatmoney.com, but you can also go on any podcasting app or YouTube and subscribe to us on there. Our podcast, The Expat Money Show, has been going for 8-9 years now. I mean, I started it in the UA. That was another reason I left, by the way. They started banning Zoom right when the very early days of Zoom. I think that they let that back in, but that made it very difficult for recording a podcast. But you can find our podcast on any podcasting platform. We're on X at my name. It's at Thorup Mikkel on X. And yeah, reach out to us. We're happy to help. We're happy to try to take care of your community, your subscriber base, and anything I can do to support you guys, I'm here.
Mikkel, thanks for coming on the show, man. It's been a pleasure.
Zuby, pleasure's all mine, and congratulations again on becoming a father.